Hi everyone, I'm here with Daniel. I came across Daniel in one of the cancer groups on Facebook, and he was being really inspiring, really giving everybody some hope and some motivation to keep going on their fight, and also to living a really healthy life. I believe that you are going to be doing an ultra marathon soon, which we can talk about it in a minute. But thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, Daniel. I really appreciate it. So how are you today?
Hi, Angelica. It's nice to meet you. I'm doing great today. I am currently healthier than ever. I've been, as you found me, I've been on a 10-year journey away from the weakness that I felt when I was in the depths of, chemo. And it was one step at a time, one difficult step at a time, very difficult steps in the beginning. But I kept going forward with that purpose. And I am now doing stuff that I have swore to myself many years ago that I would never, ever, ever attempt in my life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how old were you when you had cancer, and what cancer did you have?
I was 31 years old. I was 30 years old when I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. At the time, I was pretty overweight. I was 210 pounds, which would be like 95-ish kilos, and 5'10", which is basically like 177 centimeters. So I was not severely obese as far as American standards go, but I was getting winded by when I was trying to play with my kids, and I realized something needed to change. I had gotten all the way as far as running a couple of half marathons when I found some soreness that was suspicious. And it was a relatively quick process to going to the doctor, letting him know there was some soreness. He felt a lump, sent me to go get ultrasound. And that was a somewhat awkward process, getting it scanned for the first time. And then by the time they figured out what it was, the surgeon was all too happy to tell me that we're taking it out the very next day.
Wow.
And surgeons in America are quite an eager bunch. I hadn't had the time to really process anything yet, which was, I guess, maybe for the better, because if I had spent too much time thinking to myself, okay, I've got to say goodbye. I've been attached to this ball for my whole life. And, we've made lots of good and bad decisions together. But no, it was quite a difference from the before and afterwards.
And obviously, so you've mentioned that you already had kids at that time, so you didn't have to go through the whole, decision making around, obviously, what to do about kids or anything like that.
Right. Things were, I guess, a little bit rocky on the homestead. And I had a couple kids, and that was a bit of a handful at the time. There was the consideration and the offer of freezing some sperm for potential future children, but that would have been quite a scientific process in itself. And I think probably at the time my decision making process was more that if there's going to be a possibility, we can certainly try to consider adoption instead of trying to manufacture, go through all the trouble, right?
So basically, next day, that's it. You went into surgery, and they were going to take only one ball, or were they going to take?
Yeah, they were just going to take the one ball. And actually, I was going to go in for a twofer. I was going to go get snipped at the same time. I remember having this discussion with the surgeon, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's all going to be get taken out." I found out later that we didn't end up going through with the twofer, which wouldn't have mattered later because things kind of fell apart on the homestead before the second one came about.
Right, and then after that, it was just taking, having the surgery and then going through treatment, or were they going to have a look first what they took out?
They had to look first at what they took out.
So you had a biopsy?
I had the biopsy and I had a scan. And then what they did was so we had the scan, we found out I was all clear, and then I was presented with a bunch of options. And what the options were was they were telling me that there was a small percentage chance that of recurrence that I could avoid if they would allow me to take out all of my lymph nodes, which is a process they described to me as they would open up my chest cavity, and then they would they would split me in half, move all the organs out of the way, take out all the lymph nodes, and then tie me back up together. At the time,
like literally from your like under your throat here, to the whole up to your the whole lot, just cut you in half.
Right, as in I cut you in half as they would with open heart surgery, move all the organs out of the way, and then tie you back up minus the lymph nodes. For me, having gotten the all clear from the scans, I thought to myself, okay, you know, what percentage chance versus changing my whole life and going through another surgery? Because, you know, at the time of the cancer, removing the tumor, that was the first time I'd been cut open in my life. And having just one cut across the midsection was enough of an experience for me. Walking about afterwards for the many weeks, feeling like my guts were going to fall out at the wrong move, and not really being certain, okay, you know, it looks fine, but what can I actually do? And I spent
sounds like a
few months like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. So is there? I didn't even realize that there wasn't like the option for somebody who had just testicular cancer to open them up like in half to get the lymph nodes out. That's pretty full on. How many years ago did you have?
This cancer? Is now that was in 2012. So this is 8 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah. So in retrospect, you know, there's the coulda, shoulda, woulda, because I ended up hitting the 5% chance of recurrence about a year later.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
So when they took when they did when they took the ball out, in how many lymph nodes was the cancer around?
Oh, I found it in stage 1. We found it in stage 1, so it was just in the testicle. It hadn't spread anywhere else. They said I was so lucky, and you know, I'm not sure.
Even being on stage 1, and there was a 5% chance,
right,
that it had spread to the lymph nodes. Is it because of the area? Because stage 1 is, like I said, it's a really, you know, it's very early on, right? Is that because of the area that the recurrence you have a higher percentage to come back?
Oh no, a 5%. It was a very low chance. So by the time that we caught it and we had gone through the scan, I had received the, you know, we're clear. We caught it before it had any chance to go anywhere else.
Perfect.
The reason they were offering the surgery to remove the lymph nodes was to remove any other possibility, because well, actually, you know, it's my memory of it is a little bit hazy, but I remember looking at the surgery and thinking, okay, you just want another procedure in your books, you know, I can't imagine that for this low of a percentage of recurrence that you want to go through all of that to remove. And then because then, you know, the lymph nodes that will manufacture your white blood cells, you know, I would have missed those dearly, and then life would have been different after having been cut open, you know, that essentially T-section like a cadaver.
Well, the lymph nodes is kind of the motorway of the body, isn't it? When there is something wrong, they will, you know, go around and find what's wrong and go back to your bone marrow and tell them you need to produce white cells to come and fix this. So that's why it's always you know, that's why when they are taking a tumor out, they always take the lymph nodes around there, because it's spread to the lymph nodes. You know, that little, you know, card in the motorway could have gone somewhere else, and take that cancer with them. So they don't actually produce the white cells, but they tell the bone marrow to produce the white cells, and they tell the bone marrow where the problem is. So it's a very important part of our obviously our system, because it's just going all around our body, and it works perfectly, because in each area of our body we have certain amount of lymph nodes. I mean, they've taken my lymph nodes out. They've taken 17 in my left side, and they found cancer in 4 lymph nodes, and that's why I had to have the 12 sessions of chemotherapy after my my operation, which was an emergency operation, just in case the cancer cells had gone anywhere else in the body with the lymph nodes.
Yeah. And so after this surgery, I had gone through. So I went through a year of scans were clear, signs, skies were blue. I thought I was golden. I thought, okay, I've cleared the percentage, and then so the day
can I
after,
ask you, did
yes.
you change anything in your life in that year?
Oh, I was living pretty saintly in that time period. And so after having recovered from the surgery, I started back up, trying to get my health back on track. So
Okay.
I had gone back to doing 5K and half marathons.
Awesome.
And I actually ended up doing the fastest races that I've done up until that point. And it was the day after I finished a half marathon, I got the call from the doctor that the last scan came back not so good, and that was a heart dropper. That was a big one, because I thought, oh, here I was. I'm like, okay, I'm opting out of this surgery. I'm opting out of all the extra stuff. You guys, we looked pretty thoroughly, and I felt pretty confident. Okay, I just went through the surgery. We caught it early enough. But so after I came back from the half marathon, I got the call that I've got to come in and we've got to start chemo pretty quickly.
Wow. And where was the cancer then?
In my abdominal area, in the lymph nodes.
In the lymph nodes, okay.
Yep.
Like all over the abdominal area, or do they go to a particular, like this testicular cancer has like a root, each cancer has like its own root, if you like, like the bowel goes into the liver and then goes into the lungs.
It was as it was described to me, it was in the lower abdominal area.
Okay. And up to that, just previous to that, like to that first diagnosis, you mentioned that you were a little bit overweight, and potentially you're not doing as much exercise. But were you feeling anything else? Were you feeling tired, or when you look back now, or were you feeling? Was there any other signs?
I was probably at a stage of health where I wouldn't have known any better. I was still addicted to tobacco at the time. I was boozing relatively hard, and so me not taking care of my body, being pretty unhealthy, I wouldn't have known if anything was wrong outside of like, okay, well, I've got to pull back a little bit on the vices, and so that's it was actually pretty lucky that I found the soreness, which would have been the only thing I would have noticed out of the blue, because if it were something, some kind of other malady, right? Feeling a little bit under the weather, feeling without feeling fatigued, I wouldn't have known the difference.
Yeah, wow. And then obviously on that year, when you were trying to get back into your health, you mentioned exercise. Did you change anything else? Did you change your diet as well, or was it just mostly, getting back to exercise and getting fitter, with the exercise?
It was after I finished chemo for the lymphoma that I really went hard on getting everything back, because it was myself. I only went through 4 rounds, 4 cycles. Yeah, so it was 5 months total of treatment. And
so was it considered Hodgkin lymphoma, or was it considered just metastasis of the testicular cancer?
I believe it was considered a metastasis. And so it was after I came out of treatment that, so the treatment was coupled with a bunch of my personal life falling apart because I found out about a bunch of other stuff going on. So family split apart, and then that came along with, getting out of the home that we had together. And so the personal stuff plus the chemo, being in that chair, put me in a pretty dark place. And I was comforting myself with whatever I could tolerate, because I was feeling pretty not good at the time. And then I ballooned up again, ended up at a little over 100 kilos. And
that was during chemo, right? Because of the steroids that they give you and all kind of that, or you're just eating because you're feeling sick and eating whatever you could. And
yeah, comfort eating plus so the comfort eating plus the stress eating, I was pretty grumpy at the time while I was in the chemo chair. So they were bless their hearts, the nurses and my family and friends were shuttling whatever comfort foods they knew would keep a smile on my face or keep me from lashing out with whatever negativity I had to get. So I got pretty unhealthy at the time. And when I got out, I remember thinking to myself that I'm not just, I got to rebuild now from way less than when I started. Because now I went from running half marathons. Now I'm getting winded from walking to the bathroom. And one thing that was especially inspirational for me was that a lot of my care team were marathon racers and very fast ones at that.
Awesome.
So I was driven by I wanted to show them a good story because they had put up with so much of my grumpiness during treatment. So much of my grumpiness. I remember whining to them so much about how could they not have figured out anything better in the last 50 years than chemotherapy. And so they put up with all my whining, and I wanted to show them, there's going to be a good story out of this. So I signed up for my first marathon, for better for worse. That was because the one that I had signed up before, I had to watch from the sidelines. I planned to do one in 2013 when the lymphoma came. And I watched that one for the sideline. I was feeling pretty sorry for myself. And so I went on the warpath. But here's the secret. I still did not like running. I avoided it as much as possible. I was doing the elliptical machine at the gym. That was my start back to fitness. I would do the elliptical machine and watch Netflix or YouTube. And that was the start of my cardio career. And that's
so you just go, pretty much after the 4 sessions of chemotherapy, you're feeling so weak that it makes you couldn't even walk to the bathroom. So slowly you started getting back to the gym.
Yes. I started getting back to the gym. I had a lot of, I had a lot of grudges to grind because, my personal life had fallen apart too. Newly single and, I'm not looking too great for, that early 30s single life. And the feeling of trying to get back on health from that point of view, when I was so weak, right? A lot of my previous training had been, that men's life trying to develop the upper body, those biceps and those pectoral muscles, but that wasn't working out, not a whole lot. So I figured, if I'm going to do something right, I've got to focus on something. And for a few years, I was firmly middle to the back of the pack distance runner, and I just had to make my peace with it.
Yeah. But you didn't give up, right? You kept going, and you kept at it, and you kept like, you know, going to the gym and trying different things?
Yes, it was exactly because I kept up with it. Actually, because I made myself part of the gym community. So I switched my lunch times over from eating whatever comfort foods I could find for myself to doing 30 minutes of cardio on the elliptical. And then ended up becoming friends with a lot of people at the gym, which
Awesome.
were, you know, honestly speaking, a lot of the senior citizens are the gym community at lunchtime. But those are a great bunch of dudes to get to know
Yeah.
over the years, and they've given a lot of support and inspiration for getting myself back on track.
So
A lot
did
of
you,
this,
were
yeah,
you working during, like, during chemo and a little bit after chemo when you're so weak? Were you working as well, or had you, you know, were you having a break?
no, I couldn't work. They took me out of work right away. I was actually very lucky. Over here in the States, it's not a lot of us make it out of cancer without significant medical debt. But because I worked at a hospital and I'm friends with a lot of the medical community, they helped me navigate a lot of the system that I wouldn't have been able to navigate through myself.
Wow.
So because of all my friends and family in the community, I was able to get through treatment without too much trauma on the financial debt side.
Oh, that's good.
So it was pretty good. And then I continued working afterwards. Uh, Being at the place where I worked was pretty amazing because only a couple blocks down I had the gym
Perfect.
that's associated with the hospital. So I could pop over for a quick session for lunch and then be back in the office to crunch my numbers, whatever I needed to do afterwards.
Awesome. That's great. So, and then, so you mentioned briefly, so you basically, after that second diagnosis, you got divorced as well.
Right,
Wow.
right.
So that was
And
definitely a lot to deal with, right? Just second diagnosis, you know, and feeling so physically ill, and obviously, you know, being hit, you know, mentally as well, right? With your whole personal
yes,
life.
yeah, it was the personal life and the physical life falling apart at the same time was it could have done me in. It my mind was really in a dark place. If it weren't for my two boys and you know the bond that we share, I don't know how I would have made it through. You know, so a lot of what I do, I keep them with me. I keep
Oh,
reminders of how to move forward. Right. So moving forward with purpose. I think to myself, okay, there's got to be a reason I'm doing this. So if I'm getting stronger, I got 3 rings on. You know, I made the promise for them first, but also one of them's for me because they told me that I can't do it all for them,
for
which
them.
was
Oh, that's beautiful.
it's
That is so
pretty
beautiful.
prescient of little kids to tell me no,
I
I got
know.
to think about me too.
How old were they?
When all the drama started, they were 3 and 5 years old. When we were getting back on track, yeah, it's about so when they were about 5 and 7, they had already been through quite an ordeal.
Wow. And they told you that you needed to do all that for yourself. That is so beautiful.
Yeah, they told me to include me too, because then I would always be on them about, okay, you know, we're gonna make a good life for the 3 of us. We're gonna rebuild. And you know, I want to show them that it's not, you know, because they absorb a pretty, unfortunately, a decent amount of my grumpiness. I remember feeling sorry for myself that I can't come out and play with you because I'm laid out on the couch and
Yeah.
I'm too tired and you know I could puke at any second. I'm gonna go from this. I'm never gonna be this weak again.
Awesome.
And you know, Angelica, I remember there's a couple years after treatment, another one of my friends had gone through cervical cancer, and a bunch of us were running to support her journey at a Disney race, and I remember at the time that's the first time that occurred to me that okay, this whole journey, it's not just about me. It's not just about me and my boys, but also there's other people out there who are watching, because you know, this friend of my sister's who had gotten cervical cancer had watched me do the marathon the year after I came out of chemo, and thought, yeah, that's where it's at. You know, there's hope in motion. There's hope in building up again.
And this is the person I want to, you know, be inspired by, and this is the person I want to be, not the person kind of, you know, not doing anything about it, right? You're so right about that. That is amazing. That is so beautiful.
It made a big difference having knowing that she was there at the finish line, and kind of having that kinship, right? Because after I came out of treatment, I'm the only one out of my family and friends at the time that had undergone anything of the sort. I went through a lot of incredibly invasive questions and you know, a lot of unsolicited advice. But until I met this person, I was the only one with this kind of experience. Just to know that there was somebody else I could relate to about, wow, somebody else that went through chemo. Okay, it was just, you know, it was awful.
Yeah.
The poison.
There's no other way to explain the experience, right? You can't even go there.
Just,
you know,
it's, you know,
we're laughing because there's nothing else.
The darkness, it goes straight into the lines, straight into the brain, and then
I know.
I ran my best half marathon up until that point, filled with that. I guess it was something like an elation, right? Just to know that I'm not alone out there in this journey. That she wants to also get stronger. You know, she was a little bit overeager at the time, because, you know, she had come from a much stronger, she had fallen from a much higher point of fitness.
Wow.
She was you know, a Spartan at the time, which was these people that do obstacle course races, going from 5K to marathon distances. And what she lost was quite a bit more than what I had gone from being obese to a little bit less obese, and then
you fell from like a couple of steps. He fell like from
it still
totally
hurt for me, but I didn't fall
right? Yeah.
It still hurt, but I didn't fall so far. But she fell from a point of being one of the elites out there, and knowing that she was waiting out there. And I met her and a bunch of her friends afterwards, and these guys were some of the best people I could have ever met. So I've got on this shirt right now. So I met a bunch of these guys. They call themselves a tribe. They're trying to manifest triumphs in their life. A lot of the people that I grew up with, they couldn't relate to this, you know, this journey I went on after cancer to rebuild everything.
Yeah.
Because I was inviting them, hey, I was trying to sell them, okay, you're gonna start with me. Look at me, just bald head, 200, you know, 100 kilos. You couldn't start from any slower. I can barely walk around the block. Let's go try to do a 5K. Couldn't sell it.
No.
Can you imagine the frustration? I can't sell any of my friends on rebuilding with me, except for one.
Yeah.
So 1 out of 40. It's pretty low sale.
I think unless you have, and not even that, you know, there's so many people that have been in the same place as me and you, in a way they felt that they, you know, were holding their health by a thread, and you know, we kind of did something about it, and we put things in place, and we worked hard to get back into our health. But you know, I said to so many people at reception, and you probably have said too, that, you know, all they did was eating the sweet biscuits that was given by the hospital and the chocolate cake, and the, you know, and they were getting more and more overweight, and they didn't do any exercise, and you know, their mental health was, you know, going downhill because you're taking so many steroids. So sometimes even cancer is not a wake-up call. So it's just so difficult, but because I think that we live in this society where, well, one, we've got the conventional conventional health telling us, no, all you've got to do is just sit on that chair and take the chemotherapy. You don't have
Oh
to
yeah,
do
no
anything
way.
else, you know.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, so don't worry about the rest. All you've got to do is take a pill. All you've got to do is turn up to your appointments. And me and you know that when you lose your health like we have, that is definitely not all you need to do. You need to do a little bit more than that. And I think that that's where we get a little bit full, from what most of the society is telling us. I feel that cancer is a major health crisis. It's not only physical, but even if you hadn't gone through the divorce, and it's a major health crisis. It's your body telling you, is your mind telling you, whatever you did up to this point is just killing you. It's just not working. You've got to find a different way.
You certainly do. You certainly do. A big part of what I organized my thoughts around for the journey too was, okay, so I survived, right? And at first, right, there's some diminishing returns on that feeling of accomplishment from surviving. So I survived to, okay, I survived, but so what? If all I can do in life, and all of us can do in life, is just survive, it's not enough. At least for me, it's not enough. No. I need the bucket list I went chasing after chemo was pretty intense. So I did the bungee jumping and the skydiving and and the marathon, and all of those things that I probably wouldn't have done if it weren't for the cancer. I realized, oh, I love adventure. I wanted to see this the whole time, but I wasn't hanging out with anybody that was into adventure.
Yeah.
I met a bunch of, so I met this fitness group, and they took me onto all the most amazing adventures that I would have never conceptualized myself.
No.
I had never thought about obstacle course racing. I hadn't thought about doing races in the mud. Which would have been gross to me at first. I had done a 5K in the park, which is, we're running on the sidewalks. This is wonderful. To crawling about, getting dirty with your friends, which in retrospect was a lot of fun. Getting down and dirty with a lot of people who are in it to have the adventure was a completely different lifestyle for me.
I think it makes you think, doesn't it? Like, okay, well, you are not going to live forever, and there is the proof. You're not sure how long you're going to live anymore, because I think, especially when you are in your 30s, I was 38, you think you have a long way to go. You think you've got all of this time, to go and do whatever you want, but we don't understand, at that point, how fragile life is. I thought I was invincible, that I would live, dying wasn't something that, was on my diary, on my journal, or it wasn't something that I kind of thought, I had to think about for a very long time. But I think that as soon as you get told you've got cancer, you really stop and think, what do I want out of my life? And it could be, it's like, well, how do I want to spend my time doing? Because, like I said, it was almost like before you didn't allow yourself to explore this part of you. And for me, it was the same. And it came down to things like, I want to read more books. Yeah. And I never, and I've just never stopped reading books. And I want to dance. I want to sing. I want to, and I kind of pursue every, and it wasn't like anything like crazy, like it was just that I wasn't allowing myself the time to do what I wanted to do.
You know what it is? For me, I think we didn't have the urgency to get on with it.
Yeah.
It was really a lot of until we hit that cancers that few chance in in many, and we certainly don't think we're going to be the ones hitting the lottery all the time. Yeah. And until we hit that, we were the unlucky lottery. We didn't have that urgency to get on with it, but it was because we have. I think, at least for me, I have. Once I felt the fire under my ass, I know that I have to get on with it.
Yeah.
And what a special feeling that was.
Yeah.
What being able to finally get on with all the things that I've always wanted to do, but I've been putting off for years and years. And it's always going to be one day, right?
Yeah.
It's always going to be one day. But no, so I started off this journey thinking I could never. The first 5K, I ended up puking in the bushes at 1.5 miles because the exertion was too much. It was too much for 100-kilo man to go running around for 5 kilometers. It was too much. And that first marathon was even was particularly special because the second half, which took me 3.5 hours, was a bunch of me whining and crying. How could I do this to myself? Versus my feeling at the end, like, oh my God, that was amazing.
Amazing.
Getting on with it is definitely worth it, especially for, I similar to you, I wanted to get on with, there's so many things I wanted to read, right? So I started taking audiobooks with me for these distance races. I ended up listening to a bunch of my sci-fi classics that I've always been meaning to get on with during these distance races, get a twofer, right? And what the return on being able to do the things that you've been meaning to, there's nothing that can compare to it in the rest of the world.
No. And I presume the doctors told you, you're lucky, there's no more cancer, don't worry about it, don't do anything, or have they advised you to do a bit more exercise and eat better? Have they advised you on doing anything like that, or?
So after the chemo, I stayed on high alert for the 5 years afterwards. So I stayed on scans. I insisted on quarterly scans. I knew that the radiation would have some risk too, but I didn't want to chance it anymore. Twice was pretty good for me. I think I had enough. So I stayed on high alert while enforcing to myself, right? They told me, okay, well, be better with your health. But a lot of that was I took it upon myself to get on with, okay, I've been putting off, what do I want to look like? What do I want to be able to do in my life? And what does that person have to practice in their life? So I started eating better, started looking at macronutrition, like, okay, I made friends with some of this fitness crew, right? Let's start eating like these guys so I can start looking like a fitness person. And what a difference just eating what I call it healthy-ish. You get your protein, vegetables, and carbohydrates in a healthy-ish manner, and you'll be fine as long as I could leave most of the sweets life behind me. And the transition was, it was, a lot of leaving a lot of the stuff that I knew better then, but I had a hard time, like my vices, especially leaving I still have a fondness in my heart for the booze, but I don't have the same attachment to it or relationship to it.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of, I used to look for that comfort after a stressful day.
Yeah.
And it's not the same anymore. Because a lot of what I do to manage my stress these days is I preempt it with the cardiovascular exercise. After I got my body in order, I found that I could express so much better all of the things that I need to express in terms of, the frustrations that I have inside, the stresses that I have inside.
Yeah.
I'll take them all to, this friend I call the gym. And then, I got not just the weights, not just the equipment over there, but also the silent understanding of all the people in there, right? Everybody in the gym early in the morning, everybody's got something to work on. And you're all kind of there in the same spirit.
Yeah.
And we share a spoken and unspoken relationship with these, and with this community.
Yeah.
And in the fitness community, right? Everybody has something that they're building towards. And it's because they understand the struggles. You know, a lot of these guys started from places of immense challenge. Some of them were really came from, you know, way too skinny, maybe a bit of eating disorders on either end of the spectrum, and have come to this place where they have made this journey. And they've shared this journey with me. I love hearing the story every time I'm out in the gym. Okay, well, you know, where I was X number of years ago, and this is what I did to get here today. I love hearing that story every single time, especially.
So it's almost like you found a new tribe, right? You found.
You betcha.
Yeah.
That's
I think
that's
it's so
exactly
important, like to have that social support. You know, people, like I said, you know, no one understands what going through chemotherapy is apart from the people who have been through it.
Yes. Well, you know, and
you know,
a lot of our
respect,
relationships
the doctors,
is going to be different. Sorry, again?
Oh, we got it cut off. Yeah.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
I have to repeat. Yeah, we're back on. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. No, you know, I've come to realize too that not all survivors are going to have that same relationship to it. You know, some of the people that have come back for it have really developed in a lot of different ways, and and maybe a few have really found that journey in fitness, but certainly not all of them. Some of them have taken a much more personal journey, and and really looking to find their spiritual selves, which is something that I also find pretty incredible. Although, you know, I myself, like all of it is wrapped up in, like, you know, when I joined the fitness crew, first time I climbed a mountain, that was pretty spiritual for me. I thought, as a big person, I'm not going to see the top of this mountain except on the internet. I'm just going to leave it in pictures. But the first time I summited a mountain with a bunch of my friends, and I looked about at the view from the top. You know, it took us 8 hours to reach the top.
Wow. Which mountain was that?
This is Mount Baldy in Southern California.
And up to how many meters?
This is 10,000 feet. So yeah, I haven't got the meters for you at the moment. Yeah, 10,000 feet was a pretty heroic distance for me. I hadn't even considered, you know, hilltops for me were still a challenge. When I'm doing like half marathons, I'm looking for the flattest place possible to go about it, because elevation and weight really don't go so well together. But these guys, they brought me along. Finding fitness people, right, to bring you along on adventures has been a pretty special journey. So the first time I looked out from the top of the mountain, and I held snow in my hands. That was pretty special. You know, that was pretty snow that I didn't have to you know, drive for multiple hours and ride a ski lift to arrive at. I'd walked on foot, and with a bunch of my friends, and we that's Southern California for you.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that you had mountains like that in Southern California, actually.
Well, yeah, it took an 8-hour trek. It was a pretty special trip, but it's there if you look really hard. We're going to be in a bit of a drought soon, so every time we find water, we hold on to it with both hands.
Oh, that's amazing. So so there was obviously, you know, slowly you got more healthy, you know, with your exercise and with your eating, and in regards to your kind of mental, you know, your personal journey, like mentally, how, you know, what did you find it was helpful? Obviously the exercise is, you know, it helps people immensely. You know, it's proven these days that, you know, exercise is essential for mental health. But how did you, you know, climbed out of that, you know, deep hole that we get ourselves into when we're going through cancer treatment? You know, there's so many people with, you know, post stress disorders, you know, like
Right.
after cancer, and, you know, getting back to normal life, and, you know, what's normal and what's not. How did you go about that?
So I mentioned a little bit before about the audiobooks that I took along with me for when I'm gonna get outside and try to get on with my cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah.
It was the books that brought me a lot back into this state of mental order. And I hadn't realized the value of a lot of these authors. There's one in particular, Brandon Sanderson, who wrote this book called The Way of Kings. And some of these book quotes really get to me. The one quote that he wrote was, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. And
Wow.
it's something that is so simple, but the more that you keep it in your heart, the more that you can get out of it. And there's other quotes like from the famous book Frank Herbert's Dune, the litany of fear. When I was stepping to the starting line for my first marathon, I have to paraphrase it because I'm going to butcher it now, but it talks about fear is the mind killer. Fear is the one thing that kills everything inside of you. But I'm going to let fear pass through me, and after it's gone past, I'll look through, and where the fear has passed, there's nothing.
Wow.
And these a lot of these authors and the books that I keep in my ears have taught me that what you keep in your ears makes a big difference in your mentality. A big difference, because before, when I found so stressful, like whenever you're listening to the news, it's always a bunch of depressing stuff. It's going to put you in a sour mood. It's going to give you no value.
Yeah.
But when I started listening to these books, I started finding reasons to be more excellent. Let's go make a story for myself. Yeah. What can I do with my own life to make this the journey that I want to have?
Yeah. It
So
makes you see positivity in things, right? In life, in simple moments, and, you know, even like you're saying, the positivity in having the fear, but in you know, acknowledging, but letting the fear pass you, you know, like watching the news is probably these days one of the worst things anyone can do to stay in a positive mindset. And I had a very similar journey as you. When I start reading books, I'm not a very audio like books like listener, but I love like holding the book. I read so many books during chemotherapy, and I still read, and I still, you know, kept a promise to myself that I was going to keep reading because I love reading. And all I read now is that, you know, I want to fill my mind and my soul with things that are going to be positive, that's going to help me to move forward, that's going to help, you know, my mind to heal, my soul to heal, my body, you know, like I don't want to be wasting my time. I mean, I don't watch TV anymore, you know, unless it's something that is specific, that is, to be honest, is going to be probably about health. But
got you.
You know what I mean? Like and I think you're so right. You know, we have got so much opportunity, especially with social media nowadays, to fill our lives with negativity, and that doesn't help anyone.
One of the other things that helped get my mind into gear. So there's a book I highly recommend. There's a guy who developed the Spartan race. His name is Joe de Sena. And so I listened to his book, this guy who talks about obstacles in life. He made an obstacle course race because he wants to teach people mental toughness. When you encounter obstacles, you have to figure out how to overcome it instead of letting yourself succumb to it. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is a perfect allegory for, you know, the challenges that we have, you know, not just cancer, but all sorts of dramatic things that can happen.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to have all sorts of downfalls wherever we go. And he talks about his journeys and developing mental toughness, and the way that when he develops fitness, it teaches his mind that he can overcome challenges. So he uses obstacles as a way to challenge his brain and his body at the same time.
That's amazing. Well, afterwards, I will just ask you a few book names, and then I can put it on the comments below as well. So if people want to read, they can read
Oh,
those.
you betcha. We're going to share a book club.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need some titles from you as well. I always like getting that from fellow readers.
that's awesome. So what do you think has been the hardest thing on your journey?
The hardest, I think, honestly, has been acknowledging that there's a certain darkness. It's just going to be part of me. I was on a big crusade to erase this darkness from within my heart, to let go of this past. But at some point I have to recognize, okay, you know, this is like ups and downs. There's light and darkness. There's a part of me, I have to acknowledge it instead of trying to refute it, trying to expel it, trying to, you know, exercise, give myself an exorcism, because it's not necessarily something I'm going to like a limb I'm going to cut off from myself.
Yeah.
And acknowledge, and the more peace that I made with that part of myself, and what led to me being able to manage this part of myself even better. And I so in the meditative part of the recently I found meditative state of mind when I'm able to do cardio. My breathing is finally easy enough so that I can go about a jog, and I'm in the place where I can let thoughts come and pass, you know. And so in the meditative state of mind, they teach you to, okay, you don't have to fight things, you don't have to push things away from your mind all the time. You don't have to, this is not the job of the meditative mind. You can just let things come, say, oh, that's what it is, and then it'll go on its way.
Yeah.
And the better I got at doing that, the better I got at getting on with what I want in life. Because I spent a lot of time, I spent many years forcing myself to forget my dreams, because my dreams had been showing me pretty horrific things for quite a number of years after treatment. And only recently I've learned to make peace with all of that, and just let it be, and start focusing on writing the story that I want to accomplish. And that's where I found the significant portion of unifying, the fitness, the mentality, the hope that I want to build, as well as, okay, I was blocking myself from dreaming for a long time, but if I allow myself to dream again, what is it that I want to see? What kind of story do I want to make?
I know. That is so beautiful. I use meditation during my journey quite a bit. And I have always been one of these people that can't stop their thoughts. I'm always thinking about something. And and sometimes, I'll be sitting there thinking like, why am I even doing this? It's just not working. This is ridiculous. I can't stop thinking. And you'll just be trying to fight like all these thoughts and all this, and you're right. I have learned to accept the person that I am, and the thoughts that come and go. And some days I will have a good meditation session, but some days, I might be thinking and worried and, like thinking about the things that are in my head. But and I think you're so right, like accepting, accepting myself was a big part of my journey too. And letting go of things that didn't serve me anymore, including things that, I didn't like about myself, or that I had done, or that I had, it was such a big part of my healing journey.
I can relate to that so much. Learning to accept is such a hard part. My strengths and my weaknesses, who I am, who I want to be so badly, and fighting. The time that I used to run, right? In my mind, a lot of for so many years I was running away from this weak person that was laying on the couch, feeling so sorry for themselves, 100 kilos, can't help their own life. But the more that I learned to accept that, okay, that's a part of me too, and that's okay. Just learning to say that much was of such tremendous value to myself. And I wouldn't have recognized it until I made the journey, and I could look back and saying, oh, it's okay to be you too, right? Because, first, being unhappy with yourself is such a stressful place to be mentally, that I was finding myself, trying to comfort myself in too many unhealthy ways, which still manifests itself in a little bit, right? In my life, I'm still a little bit attached to some sweets while I'm on this cardio journey, but at least I tell myself these days, okay, it is what it is. You can make better choices as we go forward, instead of attacking myself for, okay, that was bad. That was,
why are you doing this again?
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Oh, too much. Because we had enough of that nonsense in our life. We had enough. We're not gonna, what is it? I remember that feeling when in chemo, thinking to myself, thinking about booze at the time, thinking, how could people voluntarily poison themselves? I'll never do this again.
And pay money for it, like a lot of money for it.
How could you be voluntarily poisoning yourself? I'm feeling terrible. Oh yeah, but so now, I've had to let go of a lot of that to be able to socialize as a normal person again, because you know what it is.
I know it's hard, isn't it, when you go out? Like I remember my first actually thought in the same in the same kind of way you kind of had during chemo. It was actually not even during chemo. After my surgery, I had this really quirky nurse guy looking after me, and he had like lots of tattoos, and it was really like nice haircut, and you were just thinking like, he's a total party animal, right? And it was Friday night, and I said to him, like, gosh, I bet you can think of better things to be doing on a Friday night than looking after me. And he said, no, I'm fine, and I said, well, I bet you'll be, drinking with your friends, when it's a Friday night. And he said to me, no, I don't drink. And I was like, no? And he was like, no, I don't drink. Do you know that it takes 3 hours for your liver to process one drink? And I went, no. And then he said, incredible. I know. And he was young, and he was just like at his prime age of like partying, right? And I was just like, I thought to myself, I wish I had known that, so I didn't have to go through all the binge drinking years that I had.
Oh yeah,
that's probably contributed to my stage 3 bowel cancer. But when you go out these days, it's hard, because like I said, people are voluntarily poisoning themselves, thinking that is the only way that you can to find, that to have fun and to, find that kind of relaxation, because that's what they're looking for. I want to, I've been stressed a week, I just want to relax, I need a drink, and look, it is as a society, I think, culturally, that is a really, really hard shift, and knowing what I know now, I think, maybe the government should be treating alcohol like they treat cigarettes, but obviously that's not going to happen anytime soon, because the industry is God knows how many millions, exactly. But we are poisoning ourselves by drinking alcohol, and people during chemotherapy, they don't even get told, don't drink alcohol. There is people during chemotherapy, and I actually read a book while I was in chemotherapy. It was a lady who had breast cancer, and she's like, and then I go out and I drink, and I'm thinking to myself, how do you even do that? Because you are constantly on a hangover. Adding a drink to that,
I wouldn't. The constant hangover is a perfect description. Like the worst hangover for 4 months straight. Yeah, I've gotten, not only have I gotten clean of the booze, but I still so the part that needs to be able to socialize is that I need to realize, okay, I'm not going to be able to sell this concept of let's get healthy again to a whole lot of people, and I need to make my peace with it, or else it's just going to be too stressful on my life. Having worked in the hospital before and done statistics, I was reading a lot of stories about people our age-ish, right? They're going to go through the heart disease, they're going to go through the strokes, and it's all going to be self-imposed nonsense.
Yeah.
And it was these diabetes, going into the kidney failure, these things were happening in spades. And I realized, okay, you know what? I've got to make my peace with walking my own path. My friends and family, as much as I love them, I can't make them walk the path that I want them to walk. And it was heartbreaking for so many years, but I had to make my peace with it because, okay, if I'm going to do all this stuff, right? I'm going to do these ultras. Whoever's going to come with me is going to come with me. I had to make my peace. I got my one dude who came with me on my first marathon, and he turned around his life very recently. And I'm so thankful for him because, the journey is a lot less lonely when you've got some mates with you. But, I had to make my peace with being on my own for a bit because I couldn't sell I couldn't sell anybody. How heartbreaking.
I mean, it's quite lonely, isn't it, journey? Like I remember after I finished chemo, all my friends were like, "Okay, well, so are you gonna celebrate with a drink?" And you're like, no, not really. Because
no, that's not what we're doing.
Has actually worked for me quite hard. I would say probably 24/7, and he's still working to process all that chemotherapy that has gone through my body. So I might respect my body for a little while longer. And
I've had enough.
And that's the only time when I actually present my cancer card. So people go, and when I go out, so are you drinking something? And I go, no, sorry, I've had stage 3 bowel cancer. And they go, oh.
Well, I've had my fill of poison. We're good.
So they go, oh, okay. So I won't insist anymore because and I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's fine. It's what it is. And a lot of what I've done recently is, I guess, in terms of the mentality, right? So everybody's got to do their own thing, and a little bit of that loneliness comes from, okay, I'm doing my own path, but at some certain times, right, when you're still going to be around your friends and family, I feel quite different a significant amount of time. I can't, that inability to relate to, they love this stuff so much, and I grew up with all these people, and I don't feel a lot of the same things that they do. Is it, I wonder, okay, is it just us? Is it just what we've been through that really gave us that 180, and now we're unable to enjoy the same things, be on the same path, be on the same vibe? A lot of these people, we grew up on the same vibe, right? I still have memories of partying hard with him in my early 20s. God bless, I'm still here. It's
well, look, it is so difficult, isn't it? Because people, obviously, we've been through something quite serious and quite dramatic to make the changes we had to make. But when I tell people, they ask me, so what do you eat now? And you go like, oh, no, I pretty much eat a plant-based diet. Like I don't eat, I hate to say the word vegan because people think you're only eating leaves.
They look at you as like, oh,
but I actually eat it. I know, exactly. They just go, oh God, like you can see them going like, oh God, vegan, and you don't eat, and you don't drink alcohol either. Well, clearly I can't be your friend because you're so not fun now, right? It's like, but this is the world we live in, like if you're not, stuffing your face with like, crisps and cheese and French fries and burgers and and all and alcohol, and deep fried food, and eating like desserts with like 20 teaspoons of sugar, you know, you're not living your life.
It's the inability to relate that I miss probably the most. You know, I like the life that I'm living now, eating healthy-ish, you know, so trying to organize it around like fitness goals, right? So I'm eating like I need to specifically do for, you know, to achieve my fitness goals, which is, you know, very functional. And most people will be on track with it. You know, they're not going to mess around with it because most of the people I hang out with these days kind of understand that vibe. Okay, you know, I got my goals. You know, I'm going where I'm going to go, and they respect that. But they'll live differently. I think the main thing that I miss is that, you know, we used to have this kinship around, right, around our vices. And one of my high school friends, you know, went through some terrible stuff recently, and we wanted to reconnect. And I realized that in the 10 years that we've been living apart, we had diverged significantly. This is somebody that I thought was going to be a lot, you know, lifer. That nothing would, you know, would break our sworn kinship to each other. But it, you know, in my youth, right, I hadn't considered what if our paths diverge, and it had done so significantly that I was completely unprepared for the heartbreak. It was, you know, it's a period of mourning, right? That we, you know, as I'm rebuilding the community around me with people who uplift me mentally, you know, people that inspire me, that they are, you know, meeting a bunch of these old triathletes. I realized I would like to be a strong old dude like these guys. I would like to be, you know, I'd like to be 70, 80 years old, still out there doing, you know, these guys are doing, I met a bunch of these guys the other weekend. They're doing ultra marathons for fun for the last few decades. And it's not a big deal. I thought, why have I been chasing this movie star body my whole life? And I could have been like one of these old super functional guys. And I thought, so I'm rebuilding this whole thing, and I'm missing the kinship with some of the old stuff, but with the meditative process, right? Make my peace with it. It is what it is. And I'm trying to sell myself on that concept. It's still a hard concept to tell myself. It is what it is. But as each day passes by, it gets a little bit easier, right?
I know.
You know, the acceptance.
Working on it, right? Like the old stories that you tell yourself, all of a sudden they you know, they almost like the inner villain inside you get less and less power, and you know, and really the kind of that fire builds, you know, bigger and bigger inside you when you become the person that you want to be, you know, the strong person you want to be, they want to, you know, the person who you really are. But it is, like I said, is a constant work. And I think, and that is another problem with our society. People want instant results. I went to see my osteopath yesterday, and he told me a couple of really interesting stories. And one of them was one of his patients came in and said to him, "So I've stopped the alcohol, I've stopped the sugar, I've stopped all the processed food." And that was 2 months ago. I don't feel anything different. So when is this all energy and all this kind of, you know, great stuff's gonna kick in? You know? and then me and my osteopath are like giggling away, going, "Okay, so you've been abusing your body for like how many years? You know, 35 years, and you've done 2 months of, you know, healthy eating, and you now want results instantly." And this, you know, people don't want to keep doing the work. They want to go to the gym once and get the 6-pack.
You know, I've been working on data to help people realize that in a visual way, because you know, certainly we understand the numbers, living the life ourselves, right? Your body is going to represent the average of your activities, and if you're going to change the average of a lifetime of activities, it's going to take a significant amount of days to change, the average that you've been building over a lifetime.
Yeah.
Just to give people that, I guess, sometimes it'll drop them out of the hope. Oh, why even bother?
Yeah.
Because you've got to live, man. You've got to live. You got these little people that are looking up to you that need you to keep living. You got your friends in your family that would also like you to be there too. You got your
I know.
Yeah,
but I think, it's like you said, the people that are, still, abusing their bodies, they look at the people who are 80, especially if they are, sort of our age, 30s, 40s, it still hasn't hit them. They might have a little bit of a problem, their heart or their blood pressure or their, a little bit of their, maybe pre-diabetics, and the doctors tell them, all you got to do is take this pill. But they haven't really lived the consequences of all the abuse yet, unless you go through something that me and I have gone through. So they're still thinking, and they have this illusion that they're going to have a long life. And they don't even think that, a long life means having a long suffering, full of illness life. They just think that they're going to be, that person that will be 80 years old, running around, but they are not making plans for it. They're making plans to retire, financial plans, but they're not making plans to, invest in their health. And that is what the problem is. And I think actually it's really good if you're doing this visually for people, because people need to see that that's not going to come in 2 months' time.
Right. And being able to help people understand things visually, that there's a transformation process, that there's some urgency. It's one of those things that, we have a culture now where people have such short attention spans. And if you can't put things in 140 characters and less, people have already lost interest in what message you're trying to communicate. So if I can get this across in a picture, you've got some urgency, right? That you and I, for better or for worse, we've experienced something that has given us that urgency to get on with the rest of our life. Live it intentionally. Living it intentionally has made a big difference, right? Being able to, all right, what do I want to do, instead of what do I have to do? What do I have to do to maintain this paycheck, to maintain to get old and sit down on the couch? And instead we've thought, okay, that right, get on with our bucket list a little bit early. Why do I have to wait till I'm older? It was meeting a lot of when I was still working at the hospital, there was two types of 70-year-olds that I would meet. And there was the ones who waited till it was too late. There's a class for them. It's called chair aerobics. They can only accomplish aerobics by pushing their walker into a room and wiggling their arms about while sat down in a chair. And then there's the guys that I've met recently who are 70, 80 years old doing triathlons, telling me, hey, come out for a jog with us on the weekends. We're here on the trails all the time. They've made quite a life for themselves. And I thought that for my whole life, oh yeah, all this exercise is going to ruin my body, but all of that's been rubbish. All the people that
now it's proven, but it's not, the doctors are not telling you. Like when I had chemo, which was 2 years, like in 2018 I got diagnosed and I had my chemo. The doctors told me, I had an information session before chemo, so there was a PowerPoint presentation that said your immune system is going to be very low, so it's better if you don't go anywhere. You're going to feel very sick, so it's better if you stay at home and rest. And if you are going to choose to eat something, please choose McDonald's, because any other fast food restaurants are not going to be as fresh as McDonald's. So it's safer for you to eat McDonald's.
That's quite an information session. Goodness.
So I left that information session feeling very powerless, very demotivated, and thinking to myself, what the hell? I'm not just going to sit on the couch for 7.5 months or whatever time, because I had 12 sessions to go, and just watch my body waste away. And I'm not going to do that. That's not going to be me. So, and that wasn't me, but they were not telling you, look, you would really benefit from going around the block for a walk. Because I was similar to you. I was so weak after my first session that I stayed in bed for 4 days because I had run my body to the ground so much, and little by little I would go for a walk around the block, and I had 2 weeks in between sessions, and when I had delays I had 3 weeks. And on my best days, especially like 3 to 4 days before my chemo, I would just go for it. I had my bike on a wind trainer. I would just go on the bike, yoga. I'll be doing weights. I'll be going out. I'll be doing all of it.
I love it. I love it.
What I did is slowly.
Yeah.
So I finished chemo stronger than I started.
That's amazing.
Because I work, like I said, on an average every single day. It wasn't an average. I just did the work, and it was daily.
I wish I knew better. Well, I had to go through. I went through what I went through, but I really love that you got stronger, and you were so fresh out of it. At the time that I came out of it, and the year afterwards, I was still relatively weak. Even considering I'd finished my first marathon.
Yeah.
But in the time since, right, I've learned to work smarter with my body, and I've learned to build relationships in that fitness community, build that support, that just diversify and find adventures in it, right? Find the joy of it.
I know.
Of adventure. It's been a wondrous. The yoga has been unexpectedly good. As a dude, I had traditionally, yoga. That's that no way. That's not for dudes. That's just for the girls.
Yeah.
But wow, what a healing process it was, and also a great place to make friends. So
and help so much. Like for me, with the breathing, like I said, with the really getting to know my body and building that relationship with my body. And really getting into that meditative state as well, with the help of the breathing. It just helped me with strength and helped me so much, yoga. And I did it religiously, almost the yoga was kind of a must for me during the chemo, and I still do now. And even something like that, like the doctors could have said to me, right? Okay, well, if you can't go to the gym, you can maybe try yoga or something, but obviously, there isn't that support there from the, the conventional, health world. And I think that is so needed, that is so needed. You can't, if I had left my body to waste away for 7.5 months, I don't know what was going to be left.
Oh yeah, I'm that story. I was ended up heavier than ever, and in the worst health of my life, rebuilt from less than zero. I think it would have been optimal, but it ultimately, the being able, having the journey, having that urgency to get on with it was the best thing for the both of us, right? Finally feeling that, okay, we've got to do this, and we've now made the best versions of ourselves possible, and continuing to build on it.
Work on it, I know. And so, what would be the main positive thing that you found in your journey? Like having cancer. I know that there is so many people out there that when they go through it, and look, it's tough, and it is tough. I mean, it's tough as soon as you receive the the news that you have cancer. Have you found any positives on that?
I've found so much. In fact, in as much darkness as I felt during all of those months, I realized that there is always a light that's opposite of it. So for me, I've learned how to create hope in my life, because I've learned step by step I can become whoever I want to be. After cancer wiped out any preconceptions of who I was, who I used to be, what journey I'm on, I can be whatever. Next weekend, I'm going to be going on my first ultra marathon, which breaks all conceptions of, I spent so many years addicted to tobacco, and I thought, oh, my cardio is blasted for life. There's no hope for it. Any preconception, as long as I breathe, that's what I take with me. I can write whatever story I want to write. That's what I like. So I'm writing this story now, and I'm creating it day by day. And that's what it's all about. I can go way beyond survival. And I can continue to dream. That's when I learned how to let myself dream again.
Yeah.
That's the best thing that I got out of it.
That's so beautiful. So if you were to say something to one thing to somebody who's been diagnosed, testicular cancer plus, or somebody who has had the same case as you, a cancer that came back, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, you could lose everything. You can lose your whole personal life. You can lose everything you own. You can lose half your manhood and all of your health. And you can rebuild it. There's hope as long as you want it. Rebuilding is possible as long as you have purpose. As long as you know what you want, you can do whatever it is. And nothing that happens to you is permanent. You create your own tomorrows. Hope is possible. That's my main message.
Well, that's beautiful. That's so inspiring. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your time. That I'm so excited to post this, and I really hope that many people can watch this and be inspired by your journey and by who you are now. So they can believe in themselves, and they can work on themselves so they can get there. Because you are, like you said, you're not only surviving, you're thriving, and you were showing all of us cancer survivors that anybody can do that. But like you said, you've got to believe in it. You've got to work for it. You've got to have a purpose, and that's so beautiful.
Well, Angelica, it was also a pleasure to meet you. I'm going to continue to chat with you because we need to share some book titles.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Readers Club.
Take care. See you.